It's not just going to be about cars today, okay? It's about something a little bit more important, but welcome everyone. Hello, my name is Alex Ty. I'm the team principal and CEO of the DS Virgin Racing Formula E team. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to New Lab for our Innovation Summit, where we will be discussing the role of the business sector in addressing climate change. Thank you for joining us here today. So why are we here in New York? As you probably know, this weekend, New York plays host to Formula E auto racing. Our team, DS Virgin Racing, will be competing in 2 E-Prix, taking place just down the road from here in Red Hook on Saturday and Sunday this weekend. I hope you'll be able to join us there to enjoy the spectacle. So what is Formula E? Well, Formula E is the future of motorsport. It's single-seater electric racing powered by cutting-edge technology, competing on the streets of the megacities around the world. This creates one of the most exciting and unique sporting calendars on Earth, embracing sport, technology, entertainment, and relevance to key global issues. When the series was devised, I knew Virgin had to be a part of it, a big part of it, and we became one of the founding teams for the first season back in 2014. On the eve of the first FIA-sanctioned event here in New York City, and reflecting on the incredible achievements over the first 3 years, I know that we were right to add Formula E to the list of incredible adventures that Virgin takes part in. But Formula E is not just about racing, it's about much, much more to us. It's about changing business for good. Our brand seeks to make a positive impact on people and planet, and at DS Virgin Racing specifically, our purpose, our reason for being, is powering innovation to positively impact on people's lives. We know global demographics show a major trend towards urbanization, where race in iconic cities from Hong Kong to New York so we can reach population and business directly. We highlight issues from individual health and well-being in a clean environment to sustainable supply chains. While on the track, we entertain millions of people on TV and other media on a global basis. We believe we're on the cusp of a fully digital connected world. We're developing electric vehicle technology that will soon be in all of our cars, whether we drive them or they drive us. Our tech helps us to compete on track, but it also offers us a unique opportunity to advocate and showcase our performance so that we can help to increase the pace and scale of electric adoption in the wider society. We see what's happening to our planet, and we need to do something about it. We're here today because we want to harness the excitement about DS Virgin Racing and the upcoming races, to bring leaders together, to convene a platform for discussion and debate, and hopefully to inspire positive action and outcomes. That's why Sir Richard Branson is going to be joining us. That's why our incredible panellists will be on stage. And that's why we've invited you all here. So together, we can outline and acknowledge the challenge climate change poses to us all, discuss how the business segments in particular can help address the challenge, and hopefully to inspire action. DS Virgin Racing is committed to ensuring that our purpose drives the decisions we take as a team. We want to positively impact the lives of our fans, our staff, and the lives of those in the cities and the communities we race in, and our fantastic team of partners that we work with. We realize that we're in a race against climate change. It's a race we all need to win. So I hope that's brought to life why we're here today, why we're delighted that you are here with us, and what we can expect over the next few hours. Shortly, we will hear from 2 major businesses that are driving change, AB InBev, and before them, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, our wonderful and long-standing partners. But first, to set the scene of the challenge that they and all of us face, I'm delighted to welcome to the stage the Managing Director of Rocky Mountain Institute, Dr. John Crates. John, can you join us up here on stage, please? Thank you, John.
Thank you, Alex. I'm thrilled to be here today to talk about one of the most important issues facing our planet. Long ago, fire made us human. Then fossil fuels made us modern, supporting innovation and the rapid growth of industry. We now enjoy an unprecedented level of global wealth and opportunity as a result. But the costs of using these fuels in terms of local air pollution, energy insecurity, and most importantly, climate change, are eroding, if not outweighing, their benefits. We need a new fire. Switching from that old flame to a new alternative requires changing 2 big systems that are largely decoupled, oil, and electricity. Each now releases 2/5 of the world's fossil carbon, and their uses are similarly concentrated. In the United States, for example, 3/4 of oil fuels transport, 3/4 of electricity fuels buildings, with the remainder going to industry. Making all of these uses very efficient saves oil, coal, and the natural gas that can displace them both. And the more efficient we become, the faster and easier it is to switch to renewable sources. To economically reinvent fire and win the race against climate change, we need to embrace 3 innovations. First, practice radical efficiency that decreases the amount of energy that we need to use in the first place, because the cheapest energy source is often the bit that's avoided. Second, integrate intelligent systems that make infrastructure and capital that we already have work harder and smarter for us. And third, switch to economic renewables, which are rapidly increasing in cost competitiveness against their fossilized peers. Pursuing these innovations, and in this order, creates a compelling business case to transition off fossil fuels profitably. Business plays an important role in pursuing each. Let's explore a few examples to illustrate. Industrial motors use about 30% of the world's electricity. Through improved design and improved management, we can save about 20 to 40% of that overall electricity requirement. But practicing a form of radical efficiency called integrative design saved 86% less energy, not by getting pumps and motors and controls better, but just by replacing long and thin and crooked pipes with short and fat and straight ones. This isn't a change in equipment, it's a change in how we design and how we think about making the environment we live in. Applying similar approaches worldwide could displace about half of the coal-fired electricity globally, paying back in less than a year. For over a decade now, Dow Chemical has pioneered many leading energy efficiency practices and has turned that into a profit center for its business, grossing over $10 billion in savings on less than $1 billion of investment. But I'm sure we'll hear more about that later. In buildings, radical efficiency approaches applied across the river in our 2010 retrofit of the Empire State Building are now saving about 40% of the prior energy bill. We did this by remanufacturing 6,500 windows on site into super windows that block heat but let through light, plus incorporating better lights in office equipment, installing the world's largest Wi-Fi enabled control system, cut the maximum cooling load by 1/3. Then, renovating smaller chillers instead of adding bigger ones through that energy efficiency savings saved $17.5 million, helping pay for the other improvements and reduced the payback to under 3 years. In transportation, the physics of lightweight and super strong materials, aerodynamics, and improved propulsion have already proven opportunities to triple the efficiency of autos, trucks, and planes. But there are far more savings achievable in cars that sit unused 95% of the time. Here, radical efficiency and smart systems collide. Autos are morphing from pigs, personal internal combustion gasoline steel vehicles, into SEALs, shared electric autonomous lightweight and service vehicles. Consider this Mercedes-Benz concept car, or the ones that Google, Tesla, Apple, Baidu, and many others are developing. Autonomy, sharing, and efficiency can drop the cost of mobility to 1/5 of its current cost by using cars that we already have more, resulting in fewer vehicles on the road and ensuring that electric vehicles are the market winners, because even today their economics improve dramatically when they're driven more. Let's think a little bit about transforming the electricity sector and smarter systems. Thanks to our next speaker's company, most of you are familiar with the device on the left. It sends a friendly note when there's a problem. Ironically, though, the device on the right, which costs 100 times more to install and operate, is a silent thief by the hour when it requires maintenance. This, however, is changing rapidly. We're fast moving to a system of interconnected and responsive controls layered seamlessly into home and commercial systems that we need anyway, that can dramatically and dynamically balance the grid. This reduces the need for big and costly power plants that stand idly by waiting for that particular need. The result is the ability to orchestrate a symphony of expanding renewable supplies. It begins by reducing load through energy efficiency, stacking variable renewables, and then shifting peaks into valleys using unobtrusive storage and adjustable load. To date, Denmark, Portugal, Germany, and Britain have all managed to operate their grid stably with 100% renewables for at least a portion of the time. Over time, as renewables capacity expands, similar operation will prove to be the practical, reliable, and economic approach to operating the grid full time. The ongoing low cost of wind and the 80% reduction in solar that's been achieved over the past 5 years means we'll be getting ample supplies of cost-competitive renewables soon. Right now, the range of prices for U.S. wholesale electricity are widely undercut by the average U.S. renewable purchase contracts, making power purchase agreements for renewables competitive with paying a utility power bill. So let's think about how corporations are taking use of this. Industry has certainly taken note. And the implication of falling prices is a mass shift in the corporate renewables purchasing market. This chart shows the list of Fortune 500 companies committed to 100% renewables in November of 2015. Here's the same chart a year later. Corporate direct purchase of renewables now accounts for almost half of the new power purchase agreements in the United States. This is helping pull cost-competitive renewables quickly into a market where legacy asset holders are frequently conflicted and slower to act. When we deploy the principles embodied in radical efficiency, smart systems, and economic renewables across the entire energy system, we create a virtuous cycle of market transformation. Reinventing Fire, a business book we published in 2011, describes a roadmap for the United States to reduce its greenhouse gases by over 80% by 2050, producing a net benefit to the economy of $5 trillion. Last year, we completed a similar multi-year study with the Chinese government that indicated and produced similarly staggering results. These have been directly incorporated into China's 13th five-year plan, as well as their ongoing strategy. Evidence from our work on island economies in sub-Saharan Africa shows that even more astounding opportunities to leapfrog ahead in the developing world. Pursuing these integrated pathways can put the world on track to keep temperature rises below 2 degrees and avoid the most serious issues of climate change. How fast can such changes happen? On New York's Fifth Avenue, across the river here in 1900, you have to look hard for the first car. Then just 13 years later, you have to look harder for what might be the last horse. The horse and buggy industry thought it had many decades to adapt, but Henry Ford's Model T got 62% cheaper in 13 years. Car-owning households soared from 8 to 80% in a decade. 3/4 of them financed by a new GM and DuPont innovation called a car loan. Does this backdrop sound familiar? So there is a strategy for winning the race against climate change. It involves an elemental shift from carbon to silicon to reinvent fire. And we all can profit from its success by making the world richer, cleaner, safer, and cooler. Thank you for your kind attention. I'd now like to welcome Laura Burks, Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer of Hewlett-Packard, to the podium.
Wow, what a great occasion to be gathering at the Brooklyn New Labs to discuss this important role of business in climate action. It's really events like this with leaders like all of you, which inspire me in my role at HPE as our Chief Sustainability Officer. And it's thoughtful gatherings like this with partnerships like that with DS Virgin Racing, the DS Virgin Racing team that really make us proud to be affiliated with them on a constant basis. We appreciate our partnership provides any number of opportunities, but this one in particular, a serious discussion about private sector stakeholders and solving critical environmental and social challenges. So this is truly a remarkable platform to be launching today's discussion and more importantly, to be ideating solutions to climate change and with so many brilliant minds and progressive companies. So the next few minutes I'll take to just highlight the ever-changing landscape of climate leadership. And as many of us know, this has had a host of iterations in recent months, in many ways surprisingly positive. But first, let me just make a quick note about my slides. This will not be a traditional corporate deck with charts and graphs, so you can keep your phones in your pocket. In the effort to personalize the presentation and keep your attention, I've changed the slides. As a mountain climber and as a backcountry skier, it's actually that exposure to nature that I get in the mountains which constantly inspires me in my role and in my job and what drives me to be so passionate about sustainability. So I've personalized them as such. And with that, on the changing nature of climate leadership, I'll begin with one word, which is unpredictable. We're living in a time of uncertainty, of unpredictability and anxiety. So much has changed and so fast. We saw that in the Model T photos here and at an even more accelerated pace now. From policies and legislation to government priorities, leadership, and yes, as well, expectations. And at the same time, we have a surge of unprecedented activism from all corners of the world, some in reaction to change, but others in support of more change, all telling us that we can no longer define what normal really means. And thankfully, when it comes to preserving our planet and on the whole, governments and businesses and citizens have been bolder, they've been more aggressive and in many cases even heroic in their commitments and actions of late. There are a few which immediately spring to mind, Tesla, Starbucks, IKEA, and of course Unilever. Very recently, another new actor, at least in the climate space, was GE, who recently came out very proactively in support of the Paris Climate Agreement with their former CEO, Jeff Immelt, stating that companies must be resilient and learn to adjust to political volatility. Companies must have their own foreign policies and create solutions which address local needs for both customers and society. Lyft is another great example recently, and in the social context, a startup that acted like a giant and illustrated a clear point of view when the immigration bill first went to public last winter. So we see this changing landscape on an ongoing basis. Businesses are stepping up in mass and honoring social contracts. They're meeting and exceeding their sustainability goals and working to fill voids which have been created. In the face of unpredictability, I would say that we can clearly see employees and customers demanding more and more of corporations, which is a wonderful evolution. The next two words I'll describe here in our discussion on landscape are tipping point. So in this case, my friend, when I was bullying him, probably has a different vantage of tipping point. But here, I'll refer to this as a tipping point for business and going from not just talking about the private sector's role in addressing climate change. Companies have stepped up. All of you in this room have stepped up. So we need to change the conversation to the how. How can we do more? How can we become more transparent? How can we learn from some while helping others along? We've reached a tipping point wherein business is not just focusing on its own practices, but a broader diaspora of stakeholders too. We need to look to our supply chains, to our partners, to our customers, and the list goes on. Employees and citizens now more than ever are holding businesses accountable to a greater extent than ever before, making their voices heard through their wallets and their purchasing behavior. And this is the time when business can actually respond with scalable action. Reinvigorated is our next word, and if we were to look for a silver lining in all of the recent announcements and the U.S. retreat from the Paris Climate Agreement, a host of unexpectedly positive outcomes actually arise, and I'll focus on a few of those. Local governments, states, cities, mayors are forming alliances to achieve their own climate agreement and social goals, with New York's own Bloomberg leading that charge. We see businesses like Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, and of course HPE amongst the hundreds of others in the We're Still In campaign. And they've spoken out against the U.S. retreat, forming alliances to support clean energy regulation while reaffirming their commitments to combat climate change. And I recently read that given all of these robust commitments by stakeholders, both largely outside of the public sector, to renewable energy, we may actually still be on track to meet the Paris climate commitments, irrespective of the current political context, which is a real illustration of climate action, and inspiringly so. At HPE, we work hard to develop transformative solutions while reducing our environmental IT footprint through the infrastructure, and this is not wavered at all, despite the political state of affairs. For us, like most businesses, this is also a competitiveness issue. As global companies, our commitments extend well beyond the U.S. For some of us, it's built into our DNA as companies. For others, it relates to security and supply chain. And for many, there's an evolution increasingly towards innovation and ensuring energy demands of the future, which are met without depleting the planet's natural resources. When we talk about tackling greenhouse gas emissions and other facets of companies' footprints, we know that they're beneficial not only to the bottom line and the environment, but they're also opportunities to drive innovation. So I think we have to remember now more than ever that it's important to cling to what may be reinvigorated in the current political context, and we're seeing some nice positive outcomes as a result. So lastly, if I'm describing elements of climate leadership, I'll note honesty over perfection. And what do I mean by that? It's not just about speaking up. Companies must consider, the larger context of conversations that the public is passionate about. People don't expect companies to be perfect, but I think they do expect them to be honest. And having humility, sharing the challenges and lessons learned, even in light of failure, makes corporations relatable actors, I believe, in a crisis which is confronting us all. So we're better off setting ambitious targets for ourselves, falling short, and endeavoring to understand why, than to not set these ambitious goals in the first place. And when we reach out to this younger generation, which will be carrying forward these important policies in the future, we have to remember that this is an important message. And if it were easy, it would have been done already. So failing while trying is better than not at all. It really is the private sector that holds such a powerful role right now and positively shaping our future and in driving climate action. I'm so thrilled to be here today, so thrilled that our DS Virgin Racing colleagues took the opportunity to convene such a constructive conversation and with the support of Sir Richard Branson and his team. Thank you all for your interest, for your commitment. Please stay engaged. Bring others with you along this journey. And now I'm thrilled to turn the conversation over to Tony Milliken and look forward to an inspiring afternoon together. Thank you.
I get the opportunity to follow up on two fantastic presentations. Let me start off just to tell you who I am. Obviously, Tony Milliken. I've got the title for Chief Sustainability and Procurement Officer, somewhat a unique title. I have the opportunity to work directly for Carlos Brito, our CEO. So I'm at the table, and that means something big in our company. And so sustainability actually illustrates his passion for what we are here for this world. I must state up early up front, I know I'm going to offend some people here, but I think I work for the sexiest company on earth, and that would be Anheuser-Busch InBev, and there's a real reason why I'll say that. And let's just move to the next slide so I can tell you why. First off, our dream. I'm representing 200,000 of my colleagues worldwide, and this is about our tag or our dream. Our dream. Clearly, we're bringing people together, okay? And so we've been doing that for hundreds and hundreds of years. So when you think about beer, it's about celebrations, all right? We're bringing people together. We're talking about good things and bad things, but for our colleagues around the world, it's about bringing people together. But here's the important thing for everybody here. To look in that tagline, it talks for a better world. And what that means for us as a company is we're here for the long haul. We're building our company for the long haul. And so it's important for us to make sure we have a better world. Think about this. Beer is a natural product, okay? Every bit of the ingredients that go into it, natural. The water, the hops, and the barley, 100% dependent upon the earth. And so that's why, for us, it's a better world. Let me move on a little further and tell you why it's even more sexy. I got 200,000 colleagues I just talked about. We're a vast company. We're on all the continents around the world, all right? We're operating or brewing beer in 50 different countries. We're diverse, over 100 different nationalities. We're selling product in 100-plus different companies. I like round numbers. You probably can figure this out. And the company, we believe, sustains over 5 million jobs worldwide. And on an average day, 50 million people are experiencing or enjoying our product. Pretty sexy, in my opinion. On the day that the U.S. moved away from the Paris Accord, my boss came out. So Carlos Brito shows you very quickly his passion around the climate. And it's just easy for me to read. He says the climate change is the most pressing issue confronting our planet. It can be resolved in concert with action with society, governments, and companies. And we at AB InBev are committed to doing our best, doing our part. Now, the key word here in this presentation, or this quote, is committed, all right? And when my boss says he's committed, it means it's going to happen, okay? So let me move forward real quickly to the next slide. Our commitment. On March 23rd, my boss came forward in Mexico City at 11 o'clock, and he said we're going to secure 100% of our electricity via renewable sources. Now, another key number in there is 2025. It's not 2030, it's not 2040, it's not 2050, which some of my peer companies around the world in the FMCG have committed to. It's 2025. Now, a lot of experts around the world think we're crazy. I'm going to tell you right now, I think 2025 is too long. And I think our company, and with me in leadership, we're going to push that to shorter in 2025. Now, I'm a baby boomer. I'm an old guy, all right, 56 years of age. I look at things, and my generation, in my opinion, looks at things in the climate a little differently than our friends in the millennials. So what I mean by that is this. Baby boomers, we look at natural resources being clean air, clean water, as being infinite. We've always addressed it that way, okay? I mean, we created the Hummer. We created the big SUVs. All these things in my generation. Now, what's interesting right now is when this commitment went out, I put it on a group text to my family. Now, I have 2 boys and a little girl. And when I say little girl, she's 20. All right? And I sent this out. I was pretty hyped up about it. And I would say about 30 seconds later, I got a text back from my oldest. And my oldest is at Notre Dame. He's in Mendoza School getting his MBA. He's a D1 athlete playing lacrosse there. And he sent me back, in capital letters, coolest thing ever. I went, whoa, coolest thing ever. I got to tell you, I changed his diaper. First diaper, not my wife, I changed it. I've been there in every part of his life, from graduating kindergarten through high school. Every major thing that's happened in this boy's life, I've been a part of. And for him to shout at me in capital letters, coolest thing ever, I had to call him. So I pulled him up on the telephone. I said, man, you got to explain this to me. He said, Dad, you're a wonderful father. Matter of fact, hugely successful and proud of you as an executive for what he also considers to be the sexiest company on earth. He said, but guess what? He says, now you're making an impact on the earth. And he said, you know, it brings a little tear to my eye in that he said, now he has something exciting to talk about me. He said, talking about you as being an executive for AB InBev, that's really cool, but he said the coolest thing ever is now you're having an impact. You're actually having an impact on my children and my children's children. Man, now that hits right here, okay? And I know where my boss is. It hits him right there also, okay? Let's talk about the commitment a little further, all right? It's not like we're already there. We started on March 23rd at 7%. To go to 100 by 2025 seems pretty Herculean, okay? But let's talk about what it also means. And the size of it, so you get an idea. It's 6 terawatt hours of electricity. Now, for everybody in here, doesn't sound like it's a lot, but let me just kind of give it to you in graphics. That's 30 million of the most efficient solar panels in the world. 30 million of them we'd have to deploy. The most efficient wind turbines in the world, we had to put 600 of them up, and they have to be in the most breezy or windy areas around the world to take care of that. 6 terawatt hours also puts us in a position as the biggest user in the FMCG world of electricity, okay? It's a monster. What else can I tell you about this? When we complete it, which I hope will complete before 2025, I know it will, but just saying hope, it reduces our carbon footprint by 30%. Now you say, well, how big is that? Let's just say it's close, it's upwards towards 1 million cars that we take off the road. It's pretty significant. Now, other thing I think about this commitment, we believe it's going to put a little pressure on our peers, okay? I know some of our peers are saying 2030, 2040, 2050. If we can do it, we think that everybody else can do it a little faster, okay? Let me move on to the next slide. Remember I said commitment. When I tell you that we say it, we're going to live it. Shortly after, we signed a deal with Iberdrola, Spanish company out of Spain, big manufacturer of efficient turbines, signed on to them. And what it means to everybody here is that we now will add 7% new capacity in renewables to their grid. What it also means is this. By early 2019, this will be fully operational. We're taking off all needs, 100% requirements of all our breweries, our distribution centers, and our retail outlets. Understand, we have thousands and thousands of retail outlets. So this covers it all. It's also the largest corporate agreement in Mexico. So we think we're also now setting the bar for all our friends in Mexico. They need to join us on this journey. Let me move one slide further. And we'll clean up and we'll finish up. I got 1 minute, okay? I can speak about this for an hour, so I'll go real quickly. Because of the size of our company, we can cover all continents. We have a responsibility. We actually have 3 different pillars. I'm going to touch on 2 of them. Growing world, we're touching thousands and thousands of farmers, okay? We want to make sure that we help them with farm technology. We want to make sure they're connected and they're banked. We also want to make sure that their level of income and enjoyment of the world goes up. So we can do that through technology. We can do that through seed research. We can do that through investments. That also leads into the next one, cleaner world. We're one huge user of water, okay? And what you see right here is Stella. We have an agreement out with water.org where we actually work with our consumers to fund clean water for people that don't have clean water in developing areas. Hugely successful. Matt Damon's involved, water.org's involved, and we see it as a huge success. Here's what you also need to know. When I started with the company 8 years ago, 6 liters to make 1 liter of beer. 6 liters of water to make 1 liter of beer. We're right now just a teeny bit above 3. 8 years, 50% reduction. We expect to keep on moving, okay? Other things that you need to know about us. We don't talk about it, but I'll give you an idea. In our brewing capacity, in all our breweries, 99% of our waste in the brewing process is either repurposed, recycled, does not go to a landfill. 99%, it's north of 99%, all right? We think we can get to 100. Huge in keeping the cleaner world. Other things we're doing right now. We're investing in alternative fuels for transportation. We do over 1 billion miles around the world in transporting our beer, okay? Hydrogen engines, pretty cool. Electrical engines, cool. Autonomous trucks, again, an opportunity to reduce carbon footprint just on autonomous trucks. All these things we're investing in. So I've gone over my time. I very, very much appreciate it. I really liked Laura's presentation. Hopefully I did just as much or influenced or at least came up to your level. So I do appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
We have reached an agreement that, fully implemented, will help us transition to a global, clean energy economy and ultimately prevent the worst, most devastating consequences of climate change from ever happening.
Early entry into force of the Paris Agreement is a clear cause for celebration, but it is also a timely reminder of the high expectations that are now placed upon us all.
Between the US and China, now climate change has been elevated into not only an environmental issue, but a geopolitical one between the most important two countries in the world.
So we're getting out, but we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's fine.
Everyone has to come together, and it is absolutely imperative that we not make it a political issue.
California is all in, 100%, in meeting the Paris agreements, in fact, going beyond.
– 2016 was the hottest year in recorded history. July was the hottest month in recorded history. This is an urgent threat to life on Earth as we know it.
A partnership among cities, states, and businesses, we will seek to remain part of the Paris Agreement process.
The urgency of action is so present. It's time for business to put it at the center, for governments to take action, and to listen to people who want a different kind of a future.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well done for applauding the video. I'm just here, I'm the moderator. I'm going to take you through our panel in a moment. I was looking at that video just now and seeing the guys hanging there cleaning the Apple sign on the wall. I was thinking, take us back to 1992 to the Rio Earth Summit. That would have been a Greenpeace climber hanging off Sugarloaf Mountain saying, clean up our atmosphere. The amazing changes that we've gone through in 30 years, you just would not see a gathering like we're seeing today, even 10 years ago, with the kind of buy-in that the business community are offering, the kind of buy-in that parts of the political community are trying to offer people now, to actually remind the general public that although this is still an issue of heated debate in many corners, people are taking the initiative, people are taking the momentum, and it is about now turning around the juggernaut. The organizers of the Innovation Summit have put together a brilliant panel for you today, so let's introduce them as we bring them on. First of all, we've got Dr. Jennifer Holmgren, who's the CEO of LanzaTech, Terry Taminen, the CEO of Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, and Andrew Liveris, Chairman and CEO of Dow Chemical Company. Now, if there's anyone who might be categorized as a host for this event, although perhaps it's more of a gathering, but if there were to be a host, I think it would be this man, iconic innovator, Sir Richard Branson. Great stuff, yeah. Thanks. So the gathering here, in case you hadn't figured it out, we have an iconic entrepreneur, we have a scientist who eats and sleeps looking at the possibilities of finding alternatives. We have someone who is a campaigner of old and a legislator as well, who has great experience in looking at how these things are talked out and how change comes about. And we have the CEO of a big manufacturing production company, the kind of CEO, I know you'll forgive me, Andrew, for saying this, who back in Rio in 1992 would have had his fists up, and now he's got his arms open. Without further ado, before we start, there was an event this afternoon, I think Sir Richard would like to talk us through now, just to perhaps kick off the proceedings and lend a jolly note to it all. What happened in Midtown Manhattan today, Richard?
The first I knew about this was when I read it in the newspaper, and it turned out that I'd been appointed the reserve driver for the Virgin Racing team. The last time I actually raced a racing car was about 20 years ago, and I was so far last at Silverstone that I was just praying that everybody would think I was first. But I don't think I managed to. But anyway, so it was just a bit of a fun thing by the Virgin Racing team. So we got the who's coming to the races tomorrow? Anybody? Anyway, it should be fun. It's the first time I think in many decades that New York has allowed races in the streets, all carbon-free cars, all battery-driven, driving at tremendous speeds, and hopefully one day we'll replace Formula One. And it's been a very successful few years since it started. So, and I just hope that our two drivers don't fall ill, and I'll enjoy tomorrow.
I think secretly you are hoping that they fall ill.
I love a challenge. So.
And then the members of this panel are also hoping that you'll fall ill and that they might get a chance to drive the cars as well. So to kick off, we've got some particular issues to talk about, the Paris Summit, various other things along the way, new reports and evidence, scientific evidence that's come out. But first of all, perhaps it's just best to go through the panel here and talk about, within some introductions, an opportunity for them to introduce where they're coming from, why they see themselves as being relevant here, and the importance that they personally and they and their organizations attach to the issues that we've been discussing. Should we start at the end? Andrew, would you like to talk us through your feelings at the moment, at this juncture in this issue?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to Sir Richard, and thank you to all of you for having this panel and this discussion. When you're running an enterprise that's 120 years young, and you're thinking about generational change, and you're thinking about reinvention, you've got to realize that some of the icons on those slides that you saw are not just Apple with an apple with a thing chunked out of it. Companies like Dow have reinvented themselves multiple times. In the last dozen years, we've reinvented ourselves to take what has been our heritage and our capabilities that we've previously hitherto used to manage what we call our footprint. So our 1995 sustainability goals were all inside the, if you call it the site infrastructure of the company, to understanding what became our handprint. Our 2005 sustainability goals became, in essence, we're sending products out to you with 95% of the world's products based on chemistry, in case you don't know that. Chemistry is all over your lives. We have a responsibility to know what the life cycle and effect of those products are. So that's the handprint. But the morphing of the company during my tenure as CEO, the last dozen years or so, has been to adopt our 2015 to 25 goals, which is, so the 10-year goals that we're in right now, which conforms to the United Nations SDG 17 goals, and that is actually we're looking at the blueprint. The blueprint is in essence no larger a thought or smaller a thought than our boundaries are not our plant sites, our boundaries are not what product effects we have to humanity, but the boundaries of the planet. And if you can actually morph your enterprise to the thought that the business driver for sustainability is nothing short of preserving life on this planet, and you incorporate it into your value system, then it's up to leadership and leaders of these modern day enterprises, 120 years young, to adopt these principles and make them foundational strategies, and to then do what needs to be done in panels like this, which is educate all constituencies, all of them, not just shareholders, but all constituencies, that the value proposition and the license to operate for every single one of us, as a person or as an enterprise, is indeed the license to operate on the planet, so that there is a planet for the future. Now, one day we might have other planets, so we can figure out that, but right now, the imperative for our company is to be a solutions provider to the world's intractable problems, and we've made that our business model. And we've reinvented our enterprise to that place. That's enough for an opener, I think.
Well, I just want to pick up there, Andrew. Turning around a juggernaut like Dow Chemicals, there must have been plenty of naysayers when you took over. How do you get the buy-in on a group as big as that, which has such a different history?
Well, in the green room, I talked to you about the 5 Ds, and certainly you're looking at one of the dinosaurs in the corporate world in one sense. I've had 42 years at the one enterprise. That might shock some of you younger folk in the room. But if you reinvent yourself as an enterprise and reinvent, in my case, the CEO job, we've seen these 5 Ds morph from what was, in essence, at the beginning, let's call it the 60s and 70s, where chemical companies were basically what you implied in full frontal denial. Okay? 70s and 80s saw the introduction of the next D, which is defiance. We know more than anyone in government could ever possibly know. Why are you regulating us? By the way, that's still a current day issue, but we'll deal with it. Then you move into that next D that we have, even before my time, which is debate, which is good. Debate brings better outcomes. And then you get to the D that we've incorporated in our company, which is dialogue, finally doing. So I've presided over a change in the company's culture, one person at a time, and rewired the enterprise culturally to the naysayers and the passive aggressives and the deniers and the defiant. There's still a role for debate and dialogue, but you've got to really change the discussion to a discussion and have a seat at the table.
Splendid, Andrew. Thanks very much indeed. Terry Tammond, and then you've got a great deal of legislative experience working for the EPA, State of California, now working for the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, a mixture of spreading the word and making sure that people understand the words to the final detail. Tell us your experience and why you feel you're relevant here today.
Well, thank you, and again, thanks to Sir Richard and to everyone for sponsoring this. In 2003, when I became EPA Secretary for Schwarzenegger, the cost of solar was about $10 per watt installed, and today it's about $2 a watt. It's on the path to about $1 a watt. The existence of LED light bulbs that are energy saving and are all around us here today was virtually non-existent, at least for ordinary users, and we were using compact fluorescents, if you remember, as a way to save energy, and those weren't terribly practical for a whole host of reasons. But today, go into any hardware store and just about all you're going to see are LEDs that save you money over time and obviously save a lot of electricity. And in 2003, one thing that we would always do with Schwarzenegger in his 7 years as governor was every year we'd go to the LA Auto Show and we would stand in front of whatever was the green car exhibit. And in 2003, there were 3 cars. By the time we left office in 2010, there were 53. And I would say that there were actually more throughout the hall that were hybrids and things which the car companies didn't even think of as green. They were just that much more energy efficient and fuel efficient. And a lot of that came about thanks to regulation, thanks to forcing the efficiency standards of appliances and things like light bulbs, the incentive programs that we put in place for solar, which then got the price down so low that we no longer needed the incentive. So again, it was just a front loading of that. and certainly by incentivizing things like our hydrogen highway and other electrification programs. By the way, I hope Formula E one of these days has hydrogen-powered electric vehicles. They are electric, as well as battery. I drive a hydrogen-powered car today in Los Angeles. You're all welcome to come see. But the point being that in such a short period of time, 10, 15 years, all of these transitions happened because of a virtuous blend of science and a little bit of policy and a lot of great technology. And those technologies would have caught up because they're simply better anyway. But we're running out of time because of climate change, because of species extinction and the things that we work on at the DiCaprio Foundation. And so what we're trying to do, whether it's in policy, whether I know it's in technology companies that want to sell things, of course, that we're trying to accelerate that pace of change because we have maybe 10 years to peak our greenhouse gas emissions and start bringing them down before truly horrific, irreversible problems are going to ensue. So the one piece that I'll just end with that I think has been missing from the table throughout much of this is finance, because the world of finance always sits there kind of with their arms folded, and there's never enough experience, there's never enough de-risking, there's never enough of anything. So that's one of the things that we're also trying to change with our Planet Pledge Fund. Anybody interested in hearing about how we're going to try to move philanthropy to put their money where their mouth is, these big endowments and so forth that are invested in things that might not actually be helpful to the mission, but in fact could be and could actually make more money on a risk-adjusted basis while helping the planet. There's huge opportunities to do that. And finance, I think, is the last big frontier to solve this problem quickly and at scale. And I'll just close with this, that the good news is I was at Goldman Sachs this morning meeting with some of their senior leadership, and about a month ago I was in Dallas meeting with the senior leadership of Bank of America. The financial community is getting it, in part because their customers, large and small, are demanding it. So we all have a role.
Terry, thanks very much indeed. Terry there mentioning the species disappearing. I think one other thing that's developed over the last 8 years or so is that we're realizing that it's not so much the planet that's in trouble, it's just its main species that's in trouble. The planet will be fine once we're gone, unless we come up with a better way of existing on it. It's literally going to kick us out. Dr. Holmgren, Jennifer Holmgren, a scientist, someone who's been looking at all sorts of research in alternative fuels and perhaps envisions a future where we might all be flying even using biofuels. Tell us a bit about why you're here.
Certainly. Let me tell you what we do. So we are carbon recyclers. You're used to the fermentation of sugars. You're used to yeast, making your beer, your wine, fuel for your car. And
that's not coming through. Can someone come and switch the mic on?
We'll do this. Voila. Okay. We do carbon recycling. You're used to fermentation of sugars. What we do is we ferment waste industrial gas emissions. So we have a bacteria that actually, instead of eating sugar, eats carbon monoxide, hydrogen, carbon dioxide to make ethanol. Where do you find these emissions? In steel mills, in refineries, in ferroalloy plants. And so we're converting those emissions before they become pollution into ethanol. That's what we do. Yeah, I appreciate that, and I know sometimes it sounds like science fiction, but it's not. We've built demonstration facilities, 100,000 gallons a year in China. We're building commercial plants, one of which will be on stream, making 20 million gallons of ethanol later this year. We have also worked with Pacific Northwest National Lab and developed the ability to take that ethanol to jet fuel. And we're working with Virgin to put Virgin planes up in the air using this fuel. And so I want you to imagine a world where a steel mill is not just making the steel for the plane, but is also recycling its emissions to make the fuel that goes into that plane. Maybe even recycling its emission to make the chemicals that go into the tires. That is what we're trying to do. And I know it appears like a simple just technology play, but that really isn't what we're trying to do. We're trying to make a headset change. We're trying to get people to understand that carbon emissions can become a feedstock of the future, that this is actually what we need to do, is create the business case so that instead of making pollution, we are actually making products. That's our goal. That's what we're trying to do.
It sounds like you two should be sitting next to each other.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. We're actually working together. Our companies have a collaboration, indeed.
Yeah.
Sir Richard. Yeah, it's great to work with you. We're looking forward to filling all our planes with your fuel. About 10 years ago, my wife, Al Gore, had been to our house and had given me his Inconvenient Truth speech before the film came out. And it woke me up, and I then spoke to a number of other scientists like Tim Flannery and James Lovelock and other people, and realized that something needed to happen. And my wife said to me, why can't you, there must be somebody in the world who can just come up with a way of just taking the carbon out of the Earth's atmosphere, and surely that would just solve the problem. And so we put up a $25 million prize and said, is there anybody out there who can come up with that idea? And 10 years later, there has been no sort of one brilliant idea that can take enough carbon out of the Earth's atmosphere to solve this particular problem. But the positive thing, I think, in the last 10 years is that there are lots and lots and lots of ideas that have come forward. I mean, we invested 7.5 years ago in a big way into solar and wind and other things, and we lost a lot of money on it. In a sense, it was just before the time. But those kinds of investments by ourselves and a lot of other people have brought the price of a lot of these energies down and down and down. And now I think it is the time to get massive investments going into these alternative energies. And solar, as has already been said, the price has just come down every year, and largely thanks to the Chinese deciding, they've had enough of smog-ridden cities. They've got to do something about it, or they might get kicked out of power. And also, I think a real realization in China amongst young people that the world has a problem. Wind is coming down every year. The real sort of key thing that we've got to get the price down is batteries. So if we can actually store this energy that can be produced en masse in the daytime through the sun and through sun onto batteries, then to a large extent the problem can be solved. And batteries may compete with you in aeroplanes as well. I mean, we may well one day have battery planes flying across the Atlantic. And I think there's an enormous amount of money now going into battery technology from a lot of different companies, a lot of different countries. And I think we are on the verge of seeing some big breakthroughs there too. Food, is another area which doesn't get talked about a lot for some strange reason. But cattle, I mean, are doing an enormous amount of damage in the world, and the methane they produce, the amount of forests that are being cut down, daily because of the demand for cattle. And there are some exciting breakthroughs here too. I mean, we are just investing in a company that can just take a little bit of the meat from a live cow, or a live chicken, or a live pig, and actually produce a lot of it just from without actually having to kill any animals. And I think 15, 20 years from now, it's quite possible that the only meat that we eat is meat that is is just as tasty, more healthy than actually having to kill animals. We may well have a situation where we don't actually have to kill any animals in the future to get our meat consumption. And then there's the other alternative things like Beyond Meat, which where they're using vegetables to produce meats that are absolutely delicious. I mean, I've had fun on Necker Island serving 30 people the best hamburgers ever, which they all say are the best hamburgers ever, and then having the fun of telling them afterwards that they were not hamburgers, they've just eaten a vegetarian meal. So there are big breakthroughs coming here as well. So that's the good news. I mean, obviously, look what's happened with in America. Having an administration that came out with the most bizarre statement on Paris is not good news, because you do need governments to set the rules, as happened in California and other places, and you do need to make it clear that clean energy should have a leg up over dirty energy, and if you have a government that is not setting proper differentials, that's going to be tricky. So so all the cities in America, the companies in America have got to come forward, and they are coming forward to step into the breach where central government is lacking at the moment. Unfortunately, there's not one other country in the world that has taken that stance. So I think the vast majority of the world are moving in the right direction.
Thanks very much. Interesting. You mentioned the dream of a carbon capture machine, and then went on to list all the breakthroughs that we have had. I suppose there's a realization amongst all of us that what we once hoped would be like a miracle cure, that someone would invent something that would make it all right. We're realizing now that this is a buy-in by everybody on the planet. Everyone plays their part: scientists, business people, legislators, coming up with their bit, their idea, which nibbles away at the problem. And that's true as well, I think, of the politics, because Rio Earth Summit collapsed. There were many more summits that collapsed after that. Kyoto was one that people had many hopes for, and then that seemed to collapse. And Paris was a moment of optimism. And make no mistake, nothing was signed in Paris that promises anything, but it was a signal of intention. As Sir Richard was saying, there have been some hiccups on the way. Now, since the exit from Paris, the We're Still In campaign has started over in the United States. 9 US states have signed up to that. 1,000 companies, over 140 cities, 220 universities have committed to maintaining those emission reduction targets that were announced at Paris. Your company was one of those companies as well. And now, as I said, there's plenty of room for maneuver yet in terms of where the American change of stance on Paris comes. But what's it like for a company like Virgin to be faced with that signal from the leadership in the US, and then to make choices about what your position is going to be going forward?
Climate change is one of the great opportunities for this world. I mean, if we can actually power our planes, our cars, our houses with clean fuels, we can actually most likely end up having a price that we're paying for our fuels forever at maybe $25 a barrel, instead of, dirty fuels have gone up to $150 a barrel only a few years ago. If the whole world can be powered forever on roughly $25 a barrel of energy, that suddenly means that companies can make more money, people can make more money, hospitals can charge less. I mean, the knock-on effect to the global economy is enormous. So I think that what companies need to realize is that pushing to be carbon neutral by 2030, 2040, 2050 is the sort of final stopgap. should be good business sense for them and should be good business sense for the economy and the people, and obviously it's the right thing to do.
Well, Terry, that's your area of expertise in many ways. The targets set by the American administration in Paris were only on a 2005 benchmark, not nearly as ambitious as other nations or the European countries, for example. Nevertheless, there's a signal of a slowdown in meeting that, although there has been some progress. How do we fill the holes? How do we bring ourselves back up to what people are looking for and perhaps even push it further?
Well, I think two things. One, first of all, I would say the Paris Agreement was an enormous success because it was voluntary. Because for the first time, as you mentioned, all of those other agreements previously were sort of top down and then let's see what comes out of it. This was the first time when all the countries of the world got together and said, here's how much we can do, by what dates. So they weren't forced, no one put a gun to their head, and they all have carbon management plans behind those, or they're finishing developing them, where it will tell you how they're going to achieve that. And everybody believes that most of those countries, including the United States, could have gone farther, could have been much more ambitious. And so the fact that the Paris Agreement, if all of those goals are implemented, we're only about halfway to where we need to be. That, of course, is the other problem with the Paris Agreement. But once again, at least tells us that there's half as much that we know we can do in a cost-effective way with policies that are already out there. I think the way that you get to the rest of it is two things. One, the Paris Agreement is the biggest business plan hidden in plain sight in the history of the planet. Nowhere, ever, have you ever seen 195 countries lay out a framework for something and tell you how they're going to achieve it. So if you're Dow and you've got chemicals that you know are going to help reduce emissions for some other kind of product, whatever it might be, or your company, you can look at all of those business plans from these countries and say, here are the 10 countries I should go to first, here are the 20 I should go to next because of their timing, et cetera, et cetera. You can go in there and you're going to have a welcoming government that's going to try to facilitate and help you because you're helping them. And then the second thing I would say is to make up that difference, we're going to need a price on carbon. I don't think we can skirt that issue. And some people say, a carbon tax could be a terrible thing, but there are great ideas out there for making it revenue neutral so that money might go back to people to incentivize them to work. So like here in the United States where we have a tax on labor instead of paying a payroll tax, maybe we get rid of that and just have a tax on carbon-based emissions and so forth. But obviously there's a cap-and-trade system in many states here in the US, in Canada, in China now, in the European system, which puts a market-based price on carbon. So it doesn't matter how we finally do it, but I do think that's the way that we're ultimately going to get to the rest of that solution. And then again, scaling up of these technologies that are there in plain sight.
Andrew, Dow Chemicals has taken a lot of this on board already. It's well integrated into your business plan. Now, Terry's there saying that if you only look at the figures, it's a no-brainer. Sustainability is the way to achieve growth, to achieve prosperity, and to also create an environment which we can all live in. Now, I'm not saying that you actually play golf at Mar-a-Lago, but you do have some access to this administration at the moment. You're on the various advisory panels. I'm not asking you to divulge the content of those, but you're there in the middle. You've understood a lot of what has changed over the last 30 years. How do you talk that kind of truth to power?
Yeah, I don't play golf at Mar-a-Lago, but I will firstly violently agree with the business model point. It is our company. We're not your mother or father's Dow Chemical. We're a material science company in the main, biological science, totally bought into this vision of food. That car, if our partnership keeps expanding, will have lightweight materials from us, structural adhesives that take out lots of weight from cars. We're doing this already. Our biggest customer, I don't mind saying, Elon Musk has allowed me to say it, in the automotive area is Tesla with his lightweighting. So we have completely changed our mix to make it a business plan. The bigger question you have, and I've thought a lot about this and I don't want to go on about it, but we have massive, massive policy failure in governments going on that's not just this topic. It's obvious, and I'll summarize it very simple because I'm dealing with it every day. Globalization, digitalization, and protecting the planet, sustainability, are three massive forces where we've left people behind. We've left them behind. And the problem we have is the public markets, and certainly, and you mentioned finance, certainly equity markets, are not asking questions about those three. They are not holding public companies accountable for any of the sustainability drivers that you're talking about. And frankly, it's being left to a few, like you, like Sir Richard and others on the panel here, to take a leadership position. But you're not recognizing how many people you've left behind. And what those people are saying is, where's my role in this new economy? What's my new job if I'm a coal miner in West Virginia? Reskill me, please. Give me the skills for this clean economy, for this vision of a better place for all of us on the planet. They're not even being talked to, let alone being educated. Only 10% of four-year college degrees in this country are STEM. She's an exception. Okay? We can't find people to actually help us solve those problems. And if we shut down immigration, it gets even worse. So we are in deficit of the skills and the training needed to help everybody help solve this problem. And it's only a few people on this panel, only a few public CEOs, frankly. You get your head delivered to you, because there's another big force going on, which is short-termism. We're in a 90-day march to make profits in the public markets. If I talk about something that has a solution 2 or 3 years from now, no investor will be interested. The investment community in this area is minor without a voice. The investment community in the area of not investing for the future is loud and demanding profits. And we're doing it to ourselves because, back to my earlier point, fiscal policy failure in these areas means monetary policy is the only way out. Monetary policy means liquidity to the gazoo, more money than we can know what to do with it. What that means is pension funds, institutional funds, normal long owners, they don't have returns. So what they've got to do is force returns for a 1-year bonus plan. So we're rewarding all those people at Goldman Sachs and everywhere else by doing 1-year returns so that we can have our pensions in this country, those who have pensions. So we are creating the dynamic ourselves because we haven't intervened on the business model of society. And the only way I figured it out to intervene is to get the public-private partnership model between business, government, and civil society leading, and then bring people along. And frankly, start electing people who understand this. Right? So what am I doing at the table? I've survived at least 14 years in 3 administrations, so I must have done something. What I've done is try to help them bring solutions to the table. And I do believe we'll find a way back to Paris. I'm not saying that out of deep knowledge, but I am saying that out of engagement. Okay?
Jennifer.
No, I was just going to add, because you set me up and I don't think you meant to. There's a little card in your packets, and the little card on one side talks about what we do, which is carbon. Putting carbon in the ground is not an economic case. But what's more important is on the back, we're trying to help the YWCA Tech Girl program. It's a STEM program for young women. And if you tweet us a carbon smart picture, you doing something carbon smart, you, Richard, have to do something carbon brilliant. We will make a donation to that program. So I think it's really critical that we get more people, especially women, into STEM.
Somebody once explained to me just basically by saying if you shouldn't dig up dead people, and basically saying that anything that you dig up from under the ground is bad, and any energy you create from above the ground is good. And I'm a dyslexic, a simple person. But anyway, I thought, I understand that. In the same way I understood net and gross when I was 50 years old. But anyway, that's another story. The money, money to be invested in this area is critical. And recently, we decided to experiment. So we set up something called the RISE Fund with Bono and a number of other people, and we went out to the pension industry and others and said, look, we're going to try to show you, the pension funds and others, that by running a fund that is specifically for the purpose of the global goals, investing in all the projects that we're trying to overcome in the global goals by whenever it is, 2027, that you can make money. Anyway, I'm pleased to say that we've raised nearly $2 billion for the fund over the last few months. If that fund can work, we're then, in order to overcome the global goals, it needs something like $2 trillion. But if we could actually get pension fund managers to switch, a good chunk of their money to be invested in these kinds of areas. Bill Gates were involved in another fund that he set up specifically in this area to come up with audacious ideas for clean energy breakthroughs. But what we've got to somehow do is try to get the pension world to switch up billions and billions of their monies into this area to really get on top of it. But I think as the technologists are coming up with the breakthroughs, hopefully we can attract more and more money in this area.
Well, the momentum is certainly something that we're discussing here. We've seen already from the previous speakers, from the videos, and also from talking to our panel thus far. There's a lot more going on than a lot of us perhaps imagined had got this far. And as Andrew just said, there could well be a route back to Paris sooner than we think. It's time to just draw, I think, on also one of the releases that you'll have with you when you came in, drawing attention to the report that's just come out, April 2017, called Better Energy, Greater Prosperity by the Energy Transitions Commission. This is authored by Lord Adair Turner, who's chair of the Institute for New Economics. Some of them are up there. The headlines, or the three juicy bits that come out of this report, are optimistic, to say the least. With appropriate government and state policies should be possible within 15 years to build or run electricity grids power that integrates up to 80 to 90% wind and solar. Still untapped potential to improve our energy productivity, the energy intensity of GDP. In other words, how do we squeeze more energy usage out of every joule? Currently, energy productivity 0.5% per annum, so the transition will require faster improvement than in the past 20 years. And the other one, annual energy-related carbon emissions must be halved over the next 20 to 25 years. I think one situation that people like Lord Adair Turner, having spoken to a lot of the scientists, will have discovered that up until now, for fear of being ridiculed, a lot of climate change scientists have been quite bashful in their predictions. They know things are very, very serious. 1.8 trillion tons of carbon buried in the Arctic permafrost alone, which is now starting to melt. That's more than double what we've already got in the atmosphere at this stage. But people haven't wanted to push the alarmism too far because it brings ridicule and poisons the debate. But we're seeing now this alliance between the two sides. Jennifer, I wanted to ask you, given the kind of optimism or insistence that we're seeing in reports like this and expectations of Paris, the sort of work you're doing, what's your vision? Near future, long-term future, a series of Virgin Atlantic flights bubbling along on nothing more than a bit of hydrogen or some biodiesel?
Absolutely. So, today, aviation fuels, alternative aviation fuels only account for about 2% of the global energy, of the global aviation fuel demand. But that makes you feel like, whatever. But actually, don't think of it that way. In 2008, Virgin flew the very first biofuel flight on a Boeing 747. And at that time, everybody said, you'll never be able to fly on biofuels. Well, today, 2% of commercial aviation fuel is biofuel. That's less than 10 years. Technology takes time. So what we really need is investments that help technology succeed or fail quickly so that we can get these new technologies into the doubling phase. And I believe that aviation fuel is entering that doubling phase. And I believe with the help of aviation industry, because they're pulling the industry along, I think we will easily be able to get to 20 or 30% of the global demand in the next, say, 10 to 15 years.
Jennifer, do you find that obviously the airlines and the airline manufacturers and plane manufacturers are always interested in the work that you're doing? Are they enthusiastic? Do they encourage you? Do they want to see results?
Yeah, actually, this is the beauty of the aviation industry. They've made a commitment through ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Authority, and what they're doing is focusing on getting to carbon neutral growth by 2020. By 2050, there's an expectation that they will reduce their carbon footprint by 50%. relative to 2005. So it's an industry that's trying to pull technologies. Companies like Virgin, Boeing, other companies are pulling the industry along. They're making investments in new technologies. Why would an airline be making an investment in a biofuel technology? It's because they're really committed to making a difference. And I'll tell you, I don't see any other industry really doing that, except, now I looked at you, except maybe directly through partnerships, but not as an industry. I don't see the chemical industry doing what the aviation industry is doing. I think it's tremendous.
Terry?
So I'm just going to say you gave a round of applause, but it's really exciting what she's doing. I mean, the idea that the waste product is coming out of a chimney from an aluminium plant or a steel plant, which just goes up into the Earth's atmosphere. I mean, I've been in New Zealand and seeing this happen, and they just move all that stuff that's coming out of the chimney through a whole lot of things. And then,
you want me to tell you what those things are?
Yeah, you know about these things.
That's okay.
And then ultimately it comes out of jet aviation fuel. And if every aluminium plant and every steel plant in the world was to do that, then that what she's doing alone would power about 30% of the world's aviation needs. But you need a lot of investment to get there. Sorry.
No, thank you.
Terry, listen to Jennifer there and listen to Richard's enthusiasm for the technology. What's been your experience in California in terms of legislating for new science to come in, convincing the public that it should be taken on board, getting results, moving that stuff through the political body as well as through the entrepreneurial body, if you like?
Sure. So first of all, I just want to warn everybody as we throw out all these facts and statistics. One of the most brilliant climate scientists on the planet is sitting with us today. It's Michael Mann sitting right over there. Raise your hand. So if we... And a man who has had to stand up to some very powerful forces that have tried to deny everything he's been saying for a long time, and we thank him for staying strong. Without people like that, we could not make policy. We were able to persuade Arnold Schwarzenegger, a Republican governor, when he saw the data about the shrinking snow cap. Every year in California, we get a lot of snow in our mountains, and then it melts slowly throughout the year and keeps refilling our reservoirs as we use them for farming and for cities. But if it comes down as rain because of global warming, you might get the same amount of moisture. You might even get more. It just floods out and goes into the ocean. And so when he saw the statistics about the shrinking snowpack every single year, when he saw other data that proved hotter summers and all the other consequences of climate change that you know, that's what persuaded him that we could go ahead, that we had to go ahead and take these actions. But then when we talked to economists, who are the other scientists we need to be spending more time with, he understood that there were things like, as simple, and we explained this to Donald Trump. Leo and I went and met with him after the election, before the inauguration, and tried to talk some sense into him about climate change and that this could be good economic policy, that there's 28 million streetlights in America that haven't been replaced with energy-efficient LEDs, that in fact would save 60 to 70% of the energy and could pay itself back if the government did a loan guarantee program, for example, to help those cities quickly retrofit, and you would get greenhouse gas reductions literally overnight. So there's a government opportunity, a policy, a program that could be done there. So it does take this partnership, I do think, between government understanding the science and the economics first, and having been a regulator, having put our tailpipe emission standards for cars into place, I had to prove to the legislators and the public that what we were asking for was technologically and economically feasible. Without the science, we couldn't do that. And then without that, we couldn't convince the other policymakers and the public. And of course, then technology will catch up because it levels the playing field. You're not just leaving it to one company that says, okay, I'm going to try this and I'm going to take the risk. There's a level playing field when you say, no, car companies, all of you must meet these emission standards or these fuel economy standards. How you get there is up to you. And then competition really takes over, as we talked about, like with solar, how quickly the price came down with a little bit of a push.
In Scandinavia, I'm not quite sure which countries of Scandinavia, but a number of the countries have just said, by 2025, every car must be run by battery. And that's what governments need to do. If we as business people know what the rules are, we'll get there. And America, 2030, every car should be run by battery or clean energy anyway. And set that rule, and then we all go for it.
But just to add to that, though, I think we've talked about all of this, but the way we've been thinking about it at Dow, just use the acronym COAT. I think we need that sort of work done in those 4 areas. So conservation and efficiency standards for anything that burns anything, okay, needs to be harmonized. That'll help trade, by the way. And those standards, whether it be in the automobile or whether it be in the house. I mean, one statistic that frightened me was between the year 2000 and the year 2010, the average home built in the United States has a 4-foot hole in it. And 40% of all energy consumption is in buildings through HVAC. So shoddy building standards implemented by states, okay, contribute to burning more fossil fuels than we should, as an example. So in the C bucket, there's a bunch of standards that we need policy work on, regulatory work on, smart regulatory work. In the O bucket, this is the one that's hard for climate change folk who come just from the climate change perspective, but we are in the middle of optimizing our fossil fuel mix. So optimize it. Okay, so stop burning the dirty stuff, but transition to the low emission stuff. We have the world has natural gas to the gazoo, so figure a way to get that done. A is accelerate to the alternatives through smart programs. Very doable. You have to front load every technology known to humankind. We keep forgetting that the reason we have smartphones is the work done by Bell Labs, government sponsored, back in the 40s and 50s. Okay? I mean, technology at the front costs a lot of money, and private sector rarely gets the funding to do it. So it really is through smart government regulatory activity to allow a transition to these alternatives, like biofuels, so we can get to the aviation fuels that were talked about by Richard. And we need to get that acceleration done through the work Terry talked about. And T is the one he also mentioned that I think we sometimes neglect. We need a transition through pricing. And if you put a pricing mechanism out there to encourage the A while you do the optimization, and you've got the C going, so at Dow, since 1990, 900 trillion BTUs of energy saved, not burnt. 380 million tons of CO2 not emitted. 100 trillion BTUs since 2005. We are incentivized to not burn that joule or not burn that BTU. And I think, but through standards we set for ourselves. So we've got to make those endemic through the sectors. And if you put policies in front, on all those 4, even if the last one takes time, get the first 3 done. I think we'll get to some of these paradigms we've been talking about.
And just to ask a quick question of you, though. So when you did that, saved all that energy, what did it do to your bottom line?
Huge, huge. We put $1 billion in between 2000 and 2005 and returned $5 billion.
Yeah. Since Virgin Racing has sponsored this, things like e-racing actually, they do make a difference because the cars are trying to come up with better batteries so that they can go further. These kinds of fun events, I think, actually do make a difference. I mean, some years ago, we decided to build a plane completely of all carbon composite materials to try to fly around the world non-stop, called the Virgin Atlantic Global Flyer. And the reason we wanted to do it was we wanted to try to persuade Boeing and Airbus to start building planes with carbon fiber in them. And Steve Fawcett, I was actually the reserve pilot for that one as well. I can fly balloons, I can't fly planes. That would have been interesting as well. Anyway, Steve Fawcett successfully flew it non-stop around the world, and then Airbus and Boeing came to the Mojave Desert where we built it, and we showed them about carbon fiber. And now Virgin Atlantic have got planes both from Boeing and from Airbus, the A350 from Airbus, and the 787 from Boeing, that have more than 50% carbon fiber, which is reducing our fuel bill by 25%. So, big reductions. Graphene is, two scientists from Manchester University have got Nobel Prize for discovering the wonderful attributes of graphene, and now we're trying to get Boeing and Airbus and others to work on mixing graphene into the carbon fiber. Graphene's even stronger and even lighter, a lot stronger than carbon fiber, so that our future planes can be, and our future spaceships and other things can be a mixture of graphene and carbon fiber built, and even lighter still. But these things take time. I mean, I think we did Virgin Atlantic Global Flyer maybe 30 years ago, and so it does take time for some of these big breakthroughs to take place. One other just quick thing while I'm thinking was the other time the world came together like this was over CFC gases with a big conference in Canada, where I think pretty well every country in the world met and banned the use of CFC. As a result, we saved the ozone, which was in real danger of being completely depleted. And on that occasion, we didn't have America breaking away from it, and everybody stuck to it. And hopefully somehow we can get America, some sense back into America and bring it back on board.
But that's a very interesting point, because I think it was Dow Chemical, among other companies, that supported that. And now you have all of these companies that told the Trump administration, stay in the Paris Agreement. There's all this business opportunity, and yet this administration didn't pay attention. But your company and others were right there that made that successful.
Montreal Protocol, and we saw the business model opportunity and took out all the CFCs and replaced them with safer products. It's an amazing thought.
Which also helped your bottom line, right? It was a good
Totally.
product. It was a business opportunity.
The other slightly frightening thought was, and you might correct me, or somebody in this room I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but I read it in Tim Flannery's book, was when CFC gases were used, there was another potential gas that people were thinking of using, which was but fortunately was just a tiny bit more expensive, so they went with the CFC gases. I'm told that if they'd used the other one, they could not have reversed it, and we might not have had much of an ozone left. I don't know what the name of the other one was, but
HFCC.
Okay, you can read it. Well, I think we got the expert. Yes, but I mean that shows how close one could come to destroying the world, and we might need another planet, so we need a spaceship.
What a good idea! Do you know anyone who's working on one?
Can I just ask the panel generally? All of you in your own ways have got a fair amount of support, clout you might call it, in terms of pushing your ideas forward, developing new technologies. What would be your advice to smaller or medium-term organizations that feel like either a niche or a small fish in the pond, to be able to set examples to the people looking at them left and right, to be able to move their operations forward? I mean, Andrew, perhaps, what would be your advice to a smaller operation that wants to join in and have the kind of influence that you are all striving to have in your fields?
Well, Jennifer is an example of collaboration with us, the two of us, but we have over 50,000 suppliers around the world, and we're setting collaborative partnerships with them on areas of sustainability, such as greenhouse gas management. So join the enterprise envelope is my advice, whatever it may be. The aggregation. The aggregation model, which is how it all works, whether it be financial aggregation through philanthropy or, frankly, the enterprise value chain. And so we're putting standards in place, and we're working closely with them to make them part of the solution, not part of the problem. And we won't accept things that actually have impacts, because as I said, we're on the blueprint model. We've left the footprint and handprint model. We're on the blueprint model. Our entire business model is based on the blueprint model. And 50% of the people in our company were not with us 5 years ago. Someone asked me earlier in the green room, how hard was this? Damn hard. You have to rewire everyone or rehire. You basically have to change thinking to this paradigm that we've been talking about here. That's how actually change happens. One person at a time, and you've got to get people to buy into it, and they see the value of it. And so clearly the youth of today see it more than maybe the older generation. We've got to make the youth of today feel good that the older generation are part of the solution or part of the problem. And I think that is part of the paradigm of small suppliers. Okay? They're part of the solution or part of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would say is it's extremely important for disruptive or new technologies to collaborate. This problem is way bigger than an individual, one company, or one government. And so the key is everybody working together. And I realize that often you think, oh my gosh, we're disrupting, and the other guy, well, they're just the old guy. Yeah, you're going to kiss a few frogs. But the reality is that at the end of the day, you will not be successful unless you leverage the knowledge and the infrastructure of all of the incumbents.
If we happen to have one of the greatest environmentalists in the room, well, can you come up and sum up for 5 minutes at the now? I feel very inadequate talking with him. Sorry to spring this upon you, but
I thought you were talking about my friend Gavin Schmidt, who's sitting right next to me, who's the director of the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies, the previous director being James Hansen, who many of you would be familiar with. Well, Gavin, why don't you stand up as well?
Yeah, bring him up, bring him up.
All right, he's shy.
And I just thought you might just you've listened, and but give 5 minutes of for instance, this big piece of ice that's broken off in Antarctica. We don't know whether it's directly related to global warming or not, but I'm just give you just your 5 minutes.
Sure. Thanks to you, Sir Richard, for promoting this wonderful event, and it's truly an honor to even have a few seconds to speak here. Well, a lot of what needs to be said has already been said here. Of course, Terry, Leo DiCaprio has almost single-handedly helped change the conversation about climate change. If you haven't seen Before the Flood, I would suggest you see that documentary. It was actually produced by Rupert Murdoch's Fox or National Geographic channel. It's interesting because over the last few days, there's been quite a bit of discussion about an article that just appeared in New York Magazine. And the title of it was, I forget the exact title, something like the End of Humanity. And there's this struggle between the sort of desire on the part of communicators to communicate the threat, the very near and real nature of the threat that climate change presents, without sort of conveying a sense of doom and gloom, which can be actually very disengaging, according to the social scientists who discuss this. So we need to make sure that we convey the gravity of the threat that we face, and we energize the public to become part of the solution without sort of stepping over that line where we create this doom and gloom and people just sort of throw up their hands in defeat. There are actually some scientists who insist that there's absolutely nothing we can do, that humanity is going to be gone in 10 years. I won't name the scientist, but that is very unempowering, and it's wrong. If it were true, that would be one thing, but it's simply wrong. And it leads us to the same place. If you think there's nothing we can do about the problem, it leads you to the same place as those who say that climate change is a hoax created by the Chinese. In both cases, you lead us down a path of inaction. So it's very important to communicate the threat of the climate change, but as Sir Richard and the others here on the panel have also communicated, the fact is that there are these amazing developments, that we're seeing an incredible exponential takeoff in renewable energy, and the global business community is embracing this challenge, thanks again to efforts like yours. And somebody spoke to this earlier. The Paris Agreement, it doesn't solve the problem. I think it was Terry who mentioned this, but it gets us about halfway from where we would be headed towards 7 to 9 degree Fahrenheit warming of the planet by the end of the century, which would be disastrous if we were to do nothing. The Paris Agreement gets us about halfway to where we feel we need to be, under 2 degrees Celsius. So it puts us, it doesn't solve the problem, but it puts us on a path where we can see the solution. And so I guess my point would be, yes, there's reason to be concerned, but there's also reason to be cautiously optimistic that this is a challenge that we can meet. And I'm even more convinced of that listening to Sir Richard and the others here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this is a perfect juncture to see if there's any questions. We've got about 10 minutes where we'll take some questions. The panelists were happy to answer questions from the floor. Could I just point out, I think the media representatives here on that side, there are arrangements for you to be able to do interviews in due course. So if we could leave this open just to the audience that have come here, the non-media audience, there are 2 Virgin staff walking around with microphones. So if you raise your hand, I can direct you towards the person concerned in the dark. Yeah, I can see someone there. So someone here.
Got one on the left here, but I think already has a mic. You know.
Where are we?
The lady.
Yeah, okay, let's take that one on the left then, if that's been passed to them.
Hi, yes.
We'll take that lady over there first, who's got the microphone, is that right?
I've got
no,
one
it's not
too.
on, so let's start.
Okay.
Let's start
Got it,
with you. Yeah.
got it. So we've hit 7.5 billion people on the planet now, and there is currently a growth rate net of 1 million people added to the planet every 4.5 days. What are the panel's thoughts about this, and is this something that we need to start talking about?
Population, is that the elephant in the room?
Well, it is the elephant in the room, but without getting into religion and biology and all kinds of other things, here's a simpler solution. The average American in the last 10 years has gained 10 pounds, myself included, and that means that airlines flying across the country have burned 350 million more gallons of jet fuel a year. So if all of us overweight Americans lost 10 pounds, we might not have to lose as many people, but if we lost 10 pounds, the planet would be better off, and so would we. So kidding aside, I would just say if we can make ourselves more efficient, we may not be able to do much about the numbers, but we can make every one of ourselves more efficient.
All right, on that line, I just did a lot of research on the amount of food that actually gets thrown away on our plates every day, and effectively, it turns out that we're throwing away nearly a third of all animals off the edge of our plates just by by being too greedy, getting too much food on our plates. That can make a hell of a difference if we just put enough food on our plates to eat and ask for seconds if we're still hungry.
Okay, let's take another question. Someone, I can just see against the light. Someone standing up there, yeah.
Hi, I'm Amy Tuninga from Montclair State University's PSEG Institute for
Why can't we see that lovely voice? But we can't.
Over there.
Okay, hello.
Hi, I'm very pleased to be here. I'm from Montclair State University's PSEG Institute for Sustainability Studies. I've been told that success is when most of us are headed the same direction most of the time, and I think you're mostly pointed in one direction, so that's encouraging. We partner with large corporations and send them teams of students to help with their sustainability initiatives, and we have many of them here today, ADP, PSEG, Hackensack Meridian, and Prudential. And my question is, how do you envision the role of new talent working together with some of the more seasoned individuals with experience to achieve the sustainability and climate change goals?
I'll give you something that we're doing to partner with folks like yourselves. We've created something called the Sustainability Corps, which is employees that we send typically between 100 and 200 a year, and we partner with other companies. There are other companies involved in this, as well as institutions. And what we do is we send them into parts of the world so they can generation skip on the topic, for example, of overpopulation. They can actually understand irrigation, understand water systems. They can understand harvesting and food production. We actually typically go into the developing world, obviously, Philippines, Indonesia, Ghana, Kenya, Ethiopia. We've been to a lot of places. We started this 5 to 7 years ago. We think it's an avant-garde program. I would encourage us to maybe take that idea and proliferate it, because I think it's a great way to get the marriage of the young, if you like, with the more experienced. We send experienced people, subject matter experts on this. The thing about the technology point is, early technologies need what I said, but there are a lot of technologies we've optimized that we've taken down the cost curve that actually can help solve intractable problems like water supply in villages in Africa and India. So that's one thing that maybe you could partner with companies like ours.
Other thoughts from the panel on that question?
I had one. What was it?
Or we can.
No, I think that in the same way that we need to encourage pension funds and things to work for purpose-driven companies, we need to encourage young people to spend their lives doing something purposeful. And what greater purpose than trying to save the world? I won't overemphasize the word save the world, but I mean potentially save the world from the absolute disaster of wreaking climate change on it. The energy is the biggest, the biggest need for everything in the world is energy, and therefore how exciting to be able to go into that as a profession and try to come up with sort of breakthrough technologies in this area. So would encourage young people to consider it.
I mean, one thing that all the panel have discussed in various shapes is this changing leadership model that we're considering today. If you think that 30 years ago it was protest to try and get change from government to enact a legislation, and now what we're talking about is everyone becoming a participant. Everyone fights against the lure of inactivity.
Plus, we're leaving governments behind. So actually, it's completely inverted. Forward-thinking governments are the exception. That's the big paradigm.
And I would just add to that, having served in government, it's an honorable profession. A lot of people like to vilify it and obviously blame government, and there's plenty of corruption and plenty of bad news all over the world. But I got to tell you, I would encourage young people to go into public service. As Sir Richard said, have a purpose, but for some period of your life, go serve in local government, go into government. There really are a lot of very hard-working people that are giving all of us taxpayers a lot for our money, and we need more innovation, not people thinking, oh my God, I want to go into government, it's terrible.
Actually, I would double down on that. I would just mandate government service by people like yourselves. No, honestly, we're not electing the right people. I said that earlier.
So we're not training the right people.
Yeah, I mean, the right people can't get elected.
Yeah.
So we need more of you to actually, do what you did.
But equally, I think in the past, we always thought of government and the social sector sorting out these kinds of problems. Now I think business has got to step forward, and business is stepping forward to fill certain gaps that some governments are leaving behind. Andrew and I work on something called the B team, and you've got Republicans, you've got Democrats, you've got people from all political cross-section, but a lot of business leaders working together, working very hard to try to get these things done, but all speaking with one voice. I don't think any of us disagree with any of these issues. I mean, they're very clear-cut, and it's quite bizarre that that we find some governments don't agree with us.
One voice, many accents.
Exactly. Okay, I just want to add one comment. I know we're saying that governments should lead, but in my lifetime, I've not seen governments really lead. The reality is that when the EPA was formed, it was because everybody saw it on Time magazine that the Cuyahoga River was going up in flames, and it was people rebelling and protesting and caring about that then created the government change. I believe technology and individuals create the dynamic that causes the government to implement something, which then brings everybody else along. So we need to lead, and then the government will follow, and when the government follows, we'll have true change. I think that's the sequence.
Extraordinary. Is there someone out there with a microphone who has a microphone?
Hello.
Hi. Just say hi, because we really can't see you. Go ahead.
I have a quick question about racing, which I hope the committee won't see us flip after this serious conversation. There's a lot of lip service paid to the development of ethics in autonomous driving systems, and I've always thought that the rubber would really hit the road when it came to racing. I'm wondering if in Virgin Racing, we might ever see a match between a computer driver and a human driver.
I think it's more likely than not, and I don't think it'll be many years before you see it. So it'll be very exciting, but obviously it also puts quite a lot of question marks on as another whole subject for another whole debate for the future. But yeah, I'm sure it'll happen, and I'm willing to bet it will happen within 3 or 4 years, not decades.
And Sir Richard will be the reserve driver for the computer.
Yeah. I'll be. That'll be my car.
Last question on this side. Do we have someone with a microphone?
Hi. I'm Sandy Ayoso. I'm the founder of a company that's working to make advanced electric vehicles affordable. My question to you is, we're already working with the likes of Daimler and Airbus, but the pace has traditionally been very slow. How would you recommend conveying a sense of urgency to both organizations like that and larger corporations as well as government agencies?
Well, I'll just say from California's perspective, we feel the sense of urgency, in part because we've been choking with smog since the 50s, and we've demonstrated how much you can reduce. Now, unfortunately, it's Beijing and New Delhi that look like Los Angeles did in the 50s. And so we've proven that we can actually have better health outcomes, and that's the thing that has motivated people even more than climate change. When there was an attempt in 2010 by oil companies to fund a rollback of our Global Warming Solutions Act, it didn't matter that Democrats, Republicans all came together to try to fight that until the American Lung Association got up and said it's a health issue. And so by making people understand that cleaner cars are going to deliver multiple benefits, but number one of which is better public health, especially in crowded cities, I think that's how you get more consumers to adopt and more government policy to assist.
Other thoughts on that?
I live on an island. I'm a very lucky person. I have a beautiful reef around the island, and I know that the reefs are going to be one of the first things to go. So if you love swimming on reefs, then spread the word.
Splendid. We've been given a bit more time on the clock, which is encouraging. So do we have someone else with the microphone there? Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'd like to honor and appreciate all of your leadership on this most important issue. My name is Chip Cummins, and I'm with the American Renewable Energy Institute. Sir Richard, I'd like you to comment a little bit about you mentioned earlier about the carbon extraction and the state of what that is relative to the prize. I know that there's companies in existence like the Global Thermostat, Chris Jabold in Switzerland is making great headway with Climeworks, others. And do you see a time coming where we can actually extract the amount of carbon out of the atmosphere necessary in order to, and then also monetize that extraction? I would ask also comments from Terry and Mr. Libris on this as well.
When we set up the prize, we also looked at the longitude prize of many, many years ago, and it took, I think, 75 years for the longitude prize to be won. And of course, it saved many ships from going to grief on those very reefs I was just talking about. Our prize has been there for about 10 years, and some of the names you just mentioned are definitely in the sort of top 20 possibilities for that prize. But we set a big target, and that was that people had to get, had to basically save the world. So they had to get the equivalent of roughly Europe's carbon output per year out of the Earth's atmosphere in order to win the prize. And at the moment, nobody's come up with anything remotely like that. But I think at least it got a lot of people thinking and a lot of people coming up with ideas. And it could be that it'll be a combination. Well, it's more likely to be that it's going to be a combination of a lot of different ideas put together collectively that will end up hopefully sorting out the problem.
Very briefly, Terry.
I would just say I think it's important for us not to let perfect be the enemy of the possible. We're running out of time. So, for example, British Petroleum in California did a project where instead of burning natural gas in a conventional power plant, they stripped the hydrogen out of it and ran it through a fuel cell, which was clean energy, and then the CO2 was used to inject to repower moribund oil wells in the Long Beach area. Now, you could say, well, all that's doing is sequestering the carbon but bringing up more oil, but as long as we're using oil, isn't it better to get two uses out of that natural gas, sequester the carbon, and then at least get the oil from a local source rather than somewhere far around the globe and transporting it and so forth. So I think there's a lot of interim solutions that we need to be facilitating and accelerating while we get to those more perfect ones.
I mean, one thing that is costing the world a lot is methane leaks around the world, and in the past, a lot of oil and gas companies, and I'm afraid in the present to an extent too, have not been anywhere nearly stringent enough in stopping methane leaks. And of course, you can't actually see methane leaks. You can't see carbon. I mean, it's so one of the problems of this whole issue. And last week, I was with a group of people, and we agreed to fund a company to put a satellite up to monitor the methane leaks that are going on around the world, and then we'll go to the oil and gas companies and other people and say, look, here's the methane leak. You can actually, by stopping it, you can actually save money because you can then resell that methane. And if you don't stop it, we also happen to know Greenpeace and a few other people. We'll be telling them about it. But please do something about it, because methane, I'm told, over a few years, is something like 70 times worse than carbon. And so, it's another one of those boxes that needs to be ticked.
I mean, if I can just finish with a chemistry view here. Not that you want a chemistry lesson, I don't think, but it's not doable yet. Sequestration is possible, but that's sequestration. Capture is much more difficult. We are in a carbon world for a reason. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are ubiquitous for a reason. We are a carbon planet. It's not sulfur or nitrogen that we're trying to get rid of. We're trying to get rid of carbon in low pressure, high temperature circumstances. There is no known affordable technology yet. Not a reason not to work on it, but no known. All the regular technologies we use are not applicable in this area. But I think we need a lot more money in this area. I don't think we're funding this appropriately. I think what Jennifer's doing is great. These are flue gases, which are different, out of aluminium smelters and steel mills. But out of power plants, the problems are intractable.
I need to call these proceedings to a halt now, because I know that if I don't, we could actually go on deep into the night and perhaps on to tomorrow morning as well. I think we all have to agree what a reservoir of positivity we've had been presented with from this panel today. Richard, Jennifer, Terry, and Andrew, I think we owe them a real debt. They've all traveled to be here today.
Well done. Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Splendid. Thank you very much indeed. Our thanks to the panel. To play us out, here's some video of the CEOs that could here today as we leave you.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Paul Pullman, the CEO of Unilever. I'm really sorry that I can't be there with you today. Thanks to my good friend Richard for the opportunity to say a few words. Well done also on taking another great initiative with this Innovation Summit, the world's first Formula E championship, and for continuing to raise awareness of the urgency of climate action. When it comes to action on climate change, the moral case is already clear. Fortunately, there's an increasing realization from the private sector that the cost of inaction is actually starting to be higher than the cost of action. Climate change already costs the global economy $5.3 trillion a year. On the other hand, we know the economic opportunities are enormous. Indeed, businesses that take climate action enjoy an 18% higher return on investment. And at the same time, they are future-proofing their supply chain. At Unilever, we've set ourselves an ambitious commitment to become carbon positive by 2030, making the surplus renewable energy available for the communities in which we operate. And with operations in a number of our largest markets, already reaching 100% renewable energy, we're well on our way to achieving this. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for pushing the boundaries with Formula E. You are bringing innovative solutions to the table and ultimately contributing to decarbonizing the transportation industry. What differentiates you from others working this agenda is that you're actually driving it with speed. I thank you for listening and lots of success with your meeting today as well as with the race. Drive safely.
Hello, my name is Oliver Bethe. I'm the CEO of Allianz, and I'm very happy to talk to you today. We all, as we work in the world's businesses, have an important role to play. And in fact, probably today, given political insecurity, the most important role to drive climate change. Because with our investment decisions, we are deciding where money is going, where investment is headed. Formula E is a very exciting way to demonstrate that a climate-neutral world, a one that is really efficient, is not necessarily dull and boring. It's an exciting way to use new technologies to get to better outcomes than with old traditional engines, for example, while creating fun in doing so. So we are very happy to contribute to the creation of Formula E. The question of whether we are hopeful for the future is an absolute yes. It's not getting easier at the moment because climate change is traded against other objectives, seemingly traded against other objectives, such as employment and other areas. We do believe in Allianz that we have to make the transition. We have all the levers in our hand, and yes, I'm convinced over time we're going to make it. But given the current political dynamics, it's very important that all those that are trying to drive towards that better future are united and are pushing it really hard, because it's not going to happen by itself.
Hello, I'm Meg Whitman, President and CEO of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Never before has the role of business been so crucial in achieving a better future. I am heartened to see the acceleration of positive and meaningful climate action from leading companies in recent weeks. At Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we believe that sustainable innovation is a powerful catalyst for change and an engine for growth. To ensure that business and society continue to thrive, we are committed to finding new ways to reap the benefits of growing global connectivity while preserving our shared resources. That's why, within our operations, we've committed to using 100% renewable energy and set aggressive targets to address environmental impacts throughout our value chain, from our own operations to our supply chain and even our products. As business leaders, we must recognize that climate action is a path to job creation, economic growth, improved public health, and advanced innovation. Climate change is one of the most complex challenges facing society today. We must work together to take swift and bold action to address the root causes and shape a sustainable future. Thank you.
We've been providing cybersecurity for over 20 years. Our mission has always been to protect the big and the small, big companies and little girls like Amanda, energy providers and Carter's grandmother, peaceful residents of planet Earth, and the warlords of Azeroth. We keep the secrets of global significance and those of personal importance, protecting nuclear plants and your cloud files, hundreds of millions of users, and one green bear. high-speed fans, and those who think things over, the reputation of IT giants, and two very small countries. And we love what we do. We have thousands of experts around the world blocking cyber threats. We've discovered $1 billion online bank heist, developed hundreds of patented technologies. We even provide protection for those you rely on to look after you. Isn't that great? 20 years ago, we became known for our antivirus. Today, we create next-generation cybersecurity to combat almost any attack. So whatever the future holds, we're ready for it to protect your devices today and to defend the star fleets of tomorrow. Protecting humans, securing humanity. Kaspersky Lab.
Okay, well, hopefully you can hear me now. That's better, much better. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce three guests up on stage. First of all, we have Alex Moisev, who is the Chief Sales Officer for Kaspersky. We've also got Alex Tye, the Team Principal from DS Virgin, and Sir Richard Branson. Please, gentlemen, if you come and join me up on stage, we can have a chat about this incredible announcement.
I don't think we're having a chat. We're going to have a big hug and say thank you very
Oh,
much.
yeah. Woohoo. The deal's been done. It's official now.
Thank you. These guys are what keep Virgin Racing going, so thank you for bearing with us, and we're very, very grateful to have you on board as a sponsor, and thank you. Do you want to say anything?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Alex, tell us a little bit about more, because you guys have actually already been a sponsor of Formula One team, Ferrari, and this is the first time you've kind of taken a bit of a step over to Formula E. Tell us about why.
Well, actually, we have met with Sir Richard about 8 years ago in Monza. You made us fall in love with the motorsport. We fell in love with Formula One. Now I believe that's the right moment and the right time to join the real future, the technology itself. We've learned from motorsport, from Formula One, a lot of automotive technology, a lot of security for automotive. We've done a lot of efforts to do the best technology. Actually, our mission is to save the world from cyber threats. Now I believe that's the perfect moment to jump into the future for us. And I'm really thankful for this chance, for this opportunity to join your adventure.
Very exciting. And why is it so important for you, Sir Richard? I mean, you know, there have been so many partnerships over the years with Virgin, with DS Virgin. Why is this one unique?
Well, climate change is a big problem. Cyber security is also a very big problem, and it's fantastic to have one of the most renowned companies on board working with us. So, just very grateful that you were to get you on board.
We can sleep at night. Alex can sleep at night knowing that he's in safe hands now.
Yeah, I got to say, Nikki, this has been, this is a very, we're honoured to have Kaspersky Labs join us. They're a world-renowned sponsor in Formula One. They've been huge in motorsport, and they've got a huge amount of motorsport knowledge. They really are going to help us go faster. But I think, in terms of relevance, they also share the same vision that we do. That cybersecurity is going to be so important in the future. As we talked a little bit earlier, Richard was talking about the fact that there might be an autonomous race against a human in the future. I think there was a little bit of a data point recently that one particular car company got hacked and all of the windscreen wipers were turned on at the same time. That's pretty scary when you think
Alex,
that...
I told you not to do that.
Yeah. So that this guy can stop that from happening. And it's really important that what we do is we protect this new future. And there's lots of different things that we need to do with the insurance industry, but also in the cyber world as well. So we're really proud to have Alex joining us. He's going to be a fantastic partner. He can bring an awful lot of racing knowledge to us, and we're looking forward to building that secure world together in the future.
I mean, Alex, sorry. Sir Richard, after you.
No. I think I was about to leave. I didn't want everyone to get too bored with us announcing this. But thank you very much, everybody. Great.
All right, then. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think this one's working. Guys, I'm the last thing that stands between you and free drinks. I don't know if they're AB InBev drinks, but I will get through this as soon as I possibly can. So, thank you, Nikki. Well, what an incredible day. I hope it's been as informative and entertaining in equal measure For me, today has been the embodiment of being more than just a racing team. At DS Virgin, we strive to do exactly that, and our purpose, powering innovation to positively impact on people's lives, drives that ambition. We as a team can only do so much, and we're grateful to everyone who has supported us today, and those who have supported us over the last 3 years. Today, we are all the richer for the expertise and debate of our panelists on probably the most important issue we face. So a huge thank you to all those that have helped. And I'm going to stop this a second and first of all thank Cameron Maltby, whoever he is, who's part of my team, who's put this all together. A lot of sleepless nights. So thank you, Cam. You and your team have done an incredible amount to put this together. So thank you to you and all the rest of my team that have put this together. Thank you. I don't want to summarize. There's a huge amount of experts, in the room, and I don't want to, try and summarize. I want to maybe take some of the few personal takeaways that I've taken from this. I think earlier this week, one of the things that was brought out was that a piece of Antarctica broke off that's 4 times as big as London, that's now cast adrift. I think it's the end of the debate. One of the things that Mr. Liveris was talking about here is, debate. We're beyond debate. It's now all about action. And I think one of the things as businesses and as individuals we think about is, how can we do something? Everything we do is important. One of the things I learned from a guy called Ross Brawn, who is the team prince of a world championship-winning Formula One team, when we were their proud sponsors when they won the World Championship. And I said to Ross, what is it that we do? What is it you do that makes this car go so fast and gives you that edge to win the championship? And he said, look, Alex, it's not one thing. It's 1,000 things. It's 1,000 things that we all have to do going in the right direction. So I think we need to do that together. One of the things that Richard has famously said to me, that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you have to go together. And I think it's up to all of us to try and go together in that direction. So I'd ask you, what I'm going to do is take away from this the opportunity to do what I can in my way, and we'll do it with our team to try and bring together some of these ideas and reach that goal. Some of the people that are on our podium today actually have a massive influential effect. So didn't talk to it directly today, but I know that Mr. Liris and other people here have a direct communication with the administration here. And this effort is making change. So we saw some video earlier on of a president saying that this country is out of Paris. I think in the last 48 hours, that position might have changed. And I think that position might have changed because of some of the people who are on this panel today. So thank you for supporting them. Thank you for supporting us, all of our partners. Thank you for coming along today, and thank you all for being here. So big round of applause to everyone here. Thank you. Okay, before Cameron tells me off, I'll try and get back to the script, because I'm sure there's some people that I need to thank specifically. So, Richard Branson, Andrew Liveris, Terry Tamminen, Dr. Jennifer Holmgren, and the expert moderation of Andrew Wilson. Thank you for that, from Thomas Reuters, our media partner for the event. I think we're better informed thanks to the presentations of Dr. John Crates, Rocky Mountain Institute, Laura Burks of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and Tony Milliken of ABM. I thought it was a wonderful presentation, Tony. And although they couldn't be with us in person, we're grateful for the contributions of Paul Polman, the CEO of Unilever, Oliver Bartay, CEO of Allianz, and Meg Whitman, the CEO of our partner, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Thank you all for offering us wisdom and inspiration. We're hugely grateful to the support of the Rocky Mountain Institute and the Carbon War on helping us put this event together. And of course, I'd like to say a huge thank you to our team partners, without whom we would not be able to pursue our purpose as hard as we do. Everyone at Virgin, DS Automobiles, Total, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and of course, as of today, our new proud partners, Kaspersky Lab. Thank you to you. And thanks also to all of you for your continued support. As DS Virgin Racing travel around the world, not only from a racing perspective, but from the perspective of doing good for people and planet, I look forward to seeing you all again at one of these panels, whether it's at a race or maybe next year here in New York. We've got two drivers racing over the weekend, Sam Bird and Alex Lim. Please put your support into them. There's a thing called Fan Boost. Hashtag Fan Boost, Sam Bird, Alex Lim. Vote for them. It'll make them go faster. Hopefully we can bring home some prizes that weekend as well. I am going to ask us, excuse me, as I reverse up, and bring to the stage David Belt. He's going to tell us a little bit about what New Lab here. I think you'll all agree it's a fantastic venue here. So David Belt, please come to the stage and tell us about what New Lab has in the future.
Thank you. So first of all, welcome all of you to New Lab. New Lab is we're a community of about 500 of the most badass entrepreneurs in New York City who are here to really, kind of show New York and the rest of the country that in spite of some of the news to the contrary, techno-optimism and great work making a difference in the world is alive and well. So when you walk around, you'll see entrepreneurs working on everything from aerospace to products that create translation devices, to products that protect the industrial athlete. And I encourage you during the cocktail hour to meet some of our entrepreneurs and learn about the work that they're doing here. This has been a totally inspiring and ambitious presentation. And the things that I took from it were just the fact that public-private partnerships are key. We have Miguel here, who's our Chief Technical Officer from New York City. We have the President of the Navy Yard here. This project was a public-private partnership that without the City of New York and without the Navy Yard and without a lot of people caring about having this type of technology in New York, we wouldn't have had. It's also the idea that big companies and small entrepreneurs should work together. And Hewlett-Packard Enterprise is one of our partners. And we encourage all of you to really take seriously the work that's happening with these companies here at New Lab, and for the companies here at New Lab to really take on the challenges and the ambitions that were provided here on the stage so that we can all work together and accomplish some of these goals. So again, welcome to New Lab. On behalf of my co-founder and my team, I really appreciate it. Again, I'm David Belt. I'm the CEO and co-founder of New Lab, and I'll be upstairs having drinks with you in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Well, look, that's a wrap. Drinks are on us. They're upstairs on the mezzanine. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.